Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Marilyn. My nickname is Maya, and today I come to you with five-star rated books. These last few months have been a little tough for me personally, and in the booktube community, we lost Janelle of Too Fond of Books, and if you want to watch my tribute to her, I'll have it down in the description box. She was a bright light in our community, and especially the mystery community. Yeah, it'll never be the same again without her. But I've been in a slump for a while now, a reading slump. And luckily, I got out of the slump recently, and I have, like I said, five-star reads. There's a tag going around on what makes a five-star read, and I haven't done the tag yet. But for me, what makes a five-star read is that it touches me emotionally. It has to reach me emotionally. I have to feel something for the protagonist or someone in the book. And the book has to be a good book. Of course, that means so many things to other people. But for me, it has to flow, and I just had two DNFs that I'm going to talk about in another video. But because right now I want to get into my five-star reads that got me out of my slump. And the first one is a book that I picked up at my library sale that I talked about in a previous video. And it's Yiddish Wisdom, and it doesn't have one set author. It only has an illustrated by Christina Swarner, and the illustrations are just lovely. And I just picked out two for you to show you how delightful this book is. And it has a illustration that's really very cute. And it says, when a thief kisses you, count your teeth. And in Yiddish, which I don't speak, but I understand a little bit, says, wenn a Ganf kischt, darf man sich diesen Ibert sellen. So I guess he's the thief kissing. And one other quote that I picked out was, and it has a very nice illustration of a husband and wife walking down a path. And it says, the husband is the boss if the wife lets him, if his wife allows. So, der Mann is der Balabos as den Web sein Lose. Excuse my Yiddish for anybody who speaks Yiddish out there. By the way, my mother spoke Yiddish, so too bad she didn't teach it to me. So that was, like I said, I have five-star books, and that was on the lower end of the five-star. The next book is A Room with a View by E.M. Forster, and this is a book that I read with Sandy of Miss Reads a Lot. She didn't like it as much as I did, but she finished it, so she's going to talk about it. I read Howard's End last year, and I just loved it. I loved his writing. This was written in 1908, so it's a little old-fashioned in some ways, at least the plot is, but the ideas are so modern, and I love that. So what is it about? Okay, this doesn't even really tell you what it's about, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So, a charming young English woman, Lucy Honeychurch, faints into the arms of a fellow Britisher when she witnesses a murder in a Florentine piazza. It's not really the blurb. It starts before then, when she goes to Florence and is given a room without a view. So already from the beginning, we see that the view is important in the story, and how she meets all of the people that are in this pension in Florence. And there are a lot of really funny characters in this book. And then the second part of the book takes place in her home, Windy Corners, which is kind of funny. To show you the wonderful, I'm not going to read from the book, but to show you how clever the author is, on chapter 12, he has chapter titles, and it's 12th chapter. And yeah, that made us kind of laugh, Sandy and I. One thing I wanted to say about the book, of course, if you read E.M. Forster, you know that he talks a lot about women's rights, the class system at that time in Britain. He makes fun of it. And it's a delightful book on that level. You can just read it for the plot, because the plot is very interesting, and it's also romantic if you can read it on that level. But I told Sandy that as soon as I finish this book, I want to go back and read it again, because it's deceptively simple. It has so many modern ideas in it that you really have to go deeper into the book. And I do want to watch the movie as well, but I don't think the movie is going to be able to have that subtlety that the book brings. Because, of course, in 1908, he wasn't really allowed to talk about certain things. But yet, if you look in the deep, between the lines, so to speak, you can see so much about human nature, about people. For example, in both Howard's End and in this book, there are two characters that I call the author, because he's sort of like describing himself. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but in Howard's End, it was a studious brother. And in this, there's a brother in this book too. And also a fiancé, as well as the Englishman. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much. I'm telling too much already. But I can see a lot of E.M. Forster in those characters who are side characters, the brothers, and also the fiancé, who, if you really look close enough, you might see a gay character. And E.M. Forster was gay. But maybe I'm just reading too much into it. I love this book, and I want to read more of E.M. Forster. So if you've read him, if you've read anything else beside Howard's End and A Room with a View, or if you've read these two, let me know. Okay, so that's A Room with a View. Loved it. The next book I don't have, because I read it on Kindle, but I'm going to have a picture right here. And the book is Elena Knows by Claudia Pinero, an Argentine writer. And she, I found out, she writes mysteries. So I'm really excited, because I love mysteries. So I'm really excited to read other books that she's written in the mystery genre. And you might think that Elena Knows is a mystery, and it sort of is, but it's so much more than that. It's short. That's one thing about it. It's a novella. And to just tell you the briefest outline of what the book is about, a woman, Elena, By the way, my eldest daughter is named Elena. It's really Elena, is stricken with Parkinson's disease. And this from the beginning was hard for me to read because my father had Parkinson's disease for 30 years. But Elena has a very severe case of Parkinson's disease. And she has a daughter, and her daughter and her are always fighting. They're just going at each other. They live together and they're fighting. And they're both very complicated characters. And her daughter dies. I won't go really into it except that Elena is convinced that has been murdered, even though it was deemed a suicide. So she's going to go on a trip throughout Buenos Aires to find out, because she has an idea that someone knows the truth, what happened to her, what's the truth. And she goes on this journey, which is so hard for her with Parkinson's. And we go on this journey with her. I read this originally, or started to read it in Spanish, because I couldn't get a copy in English until a very good subscriber friend sent it to me on Kindle. Thank you. My Spanish is okay, but I couldn't get the whole deep plot because it's so much more than what I just told you. The book has a lot of different meanings, and the end will blow you away. But I'm not going to even go into that because it's not even about the end. It's about what she learns on the journey. And, oh, it's so good. Just read it. That's all I can say. The next book that I'm going to tell you about is almost my favorite read of June. And that also was on Kindle. So I'll have a picture right here. And that is Foster, a very short novella by Keegan. Now, I read Small Things Like These, another novella that she wrote. And I liked it, but I didn't love it. Now, this book made me cry, and that's saying a lot. I sort of keep away from books that make me cry. So I'll set the scene. There are a lot of chickens and roosters today, every day, but setting the scene. Every time I say that, there's a chicken flying. It's a hot summer in rural Ireland, and a young girl is sent to live with her, I think it's her mother's sister. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's her mother's sister, by her father. She's sent to live with them, not given any information. And she spends the summer, and I think the name of the family, relatives on a farm. And she doesn't know if she's going to be brought home or not. She's a quiet girl, which I heard is the name of the movie this book is based on. So in the Kinsella's home, she finds affection and warmth she has not known. And slowly, and I'm not even going to say what happens, but it's a beautiful, beautiful book. Made me happy, made me cry, made me all the feels. I love this book so much that I want to see the movie, and I don't see many movies or search out movies. This is a movie I definitely want to see, and I hope I'll be able to see it. So what was my favorite book of the month? It's also the last book I read, and I have it right here. Stanley Tucci, Taste. It's a memoir. Now, memoirs are hit or miss for me, even though I'm a memoir writer. I'm a nonfiction writer. Because they're so hard to do well. how can I tell you how much I love this book? Even if you don't, Stanley Tucci is an actor, a screenplay writer. If you've watched the movie Big Night, and I did, and that's the reason I picked up this book, not because of the TV series that he's had. I don't know if it's on PBS or not, but if you don't like the actor, you will love the human being that is Stanley Tucci. I can guarantee you will love the human being. If you don't eat pork, I don't want to see a pig killed, I don't, you will love this book anyway. And if you love pasta, you will love this book. This is a wonderful memoir written by a wonderful man who shows that he's a wonderful man, even though he swears sometimes in the book. I didn't mind that, even though I usually don't really like a lot of swearing. His recipes are exact. I found a lot of recipes that I knew already. And most of all, he talks about his family, his Italian-American family. And I was brought up with a lot of Italian Americans in the 50s. And I have just one story that I want to tell you. There was a family who lived in the projects on the ground floor. I don't want to say their name, but the woman's name was Angelina. And her father lived across the street in what we call in New York a two-family house. And if you've seen the TV show Everyone Loves Raymond, it's sort of like that, a two-family house. Well, my mother was a difficult person, and she would go visit this two-family house around the corner to eat some good Italian food. And there was a grandfather there. And every time he saw my mother, he would say, "Okay, boss. Hello, boss." Because my mother was pretty a determined, very opinionated person. So every time he saw her, he would say, "Hello, boss." And I remember that even as 7 and 8 years old. I also remember two other things about that family. And that was one recipe that I don't know if it's in here, but peppers, eggs, and onions. And Angie, as we called her, she was about 10 years younger or more than my mother. So she was in her late 20s. And she cooked that for me one day, and I was watching her. And she says, "This is what we cooked on Fridays, peppers, eggs, and onions." And I still can remember the wonderful smells coming from her kitchen. And another thing I remember about her, my mother did not buy me toys. Everybody says to me, "Well, that's so sad." She bought me books. So I thought that was just as good. But Angie, or Angelina, bought me a bride's doll. It was my first doll that I ever had. And it was a doll dressed up as a bride, which was very popular in those days. Because what are girls going to grow up to be? Brides. That was it. And I also went to a wedding that she invited me to, and that was something else. All the kids were dancing, and I was dancing, and we went up to see the bride and give her money, put it in a big purse of money, and eat really good food. That brought back his book, Taste, brought back all of those memories for me and more. Now, I thought I don't like celebrity memoirs. This is different. If you don't like celebrity memoirs, you will like Taste. The end part of it surprised the heck out of me. Wasn't expecting it. Didn't come until the end. And it made the story all in the circle of a perfect book. The recipes alone, even if, like I said, if you don't eat a lot of meat or if you don't eat shellfish, it doesn't matter. You will find something in this book. And if you like the movie Big Night, where they talk about, I think it's called a timpano, and that was the whole setting of Night, that they make this big dish that he wrote the screenplay. He made it. He ate it every Christmas Eve because that's a Christmas dish, and that's what the book is about. But it's so much more. It has New York, places that I knew in New York. He talks about Katz's Deli, where I always went to have those big pastrami sandwiches that they had. He says in the book that if you can finish it, we haven't done our job, you know. And also, he talked about a restaurant that I always wanted to go to but never could afford, called Alfredo's of Rome, where they invented, in the Rome part, they invented fettuccine Alfredo, which is just, well, now they put cream in it, but it's really not made with cream. It's made with eggs. And there's a recipe for it. He also talks about his childhood. And he's a few years younger than me, in upstate New York. He was born in Peekskill, New York, which I remember. I've never been there. And then they moved to another town. And his life in the maybe late 50s, early 60s, reminded me a lot of my life. And it will give you a good insight into Italian-American families. He has dialogue of his mother and father going back and forth. I can't talk more about this book because it wouldn't be spoiling it, except to talk about the end, which I'm not going to talk about, of course. It made me want to know him better, because this is a good man. I don't think it's spoiling to know that his first wife died of cancer. And he talks about her in the book. I really love that, because he got married again. And he talks about his present wife. But the fact that he wanted the public to know how much he loved his first wife, how much she meant to him, and some of the recipes that he remembers about her. It's just wonderful. He's a wonderful father. He's a wonderful husband. He's probably a wonderful actor. And I remember that in Big Night. So I recommend this. This was my favorite. Foster and Taste were my favorite books of the month. And they made me happy. And that's what books should do. They should make you feel something. And yeah, some of them were short books, and that's okay. And right now I'm reading sort of a chunker, and I'm ready for it. So I think that you should be able to read what you're able to read at the moment and not worry about having to present a lot of books on Booktube. I'm going to make this, I'm going to end now. And please like this video if you did like it. And subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I will see you again in another video, hopefully sooner than later. Until then, I wish you all good health, happiness, and of course, aloha.